Good evening, everybody. It is Christmas Eve here, December 24th, 2025. I am Ryan, Michigan Storm Chasers here. We are back for a updated briefing for Friday's potential winter system. It is now looking likely we're going to get a winter system into the Friday time frame. So if you caught us last night, we talked about details as best we can possibly get with the data we have. Well, we have some more data to go over and perhaps more specifics to talk about with this system. Let's go ahead and dive right on into it. Before I dive into it, I guess, let's do an audio check here. Got some people in chat here. We got Amber, got Linda, got Justin, Douglas, Julie. Fun times in chat as well. Got Mike, got Dee Dee. What's up, guys? Good evening to you all. All good on the audio. Thank you, Sleepy, over there on Twitch. Appreciate you. Let's talk about this system incoming for Friday. In order, let's go ahead and talk about tomorrow, Christmas Day, of course. Temperatures on Christmas Day looking on the colder side. We were 7 days ago looking at temperatures in the 50s, but those have since subdued themselves. Christmas Day temperatures right around the 35 degree mark for a lot of us in central and southern lower Michigan. If you're north of Mount Pleasant, it's 25 up there in Gaylord. In the UP, upper teens, low 20s for you guys up there. Passing a shower possible late tonight into the early part of Thursday morning to the south of us. Could brush areas close to like Sturgis, cold water areas, but not going to be a huge deal there. Otherwise, Christmas Day is dry, colder, but dry. What comes later on the evening is the attention getter here. Looking at the forecast model, the European, we're going to run this through the evening. There's your passing shower up to the south. Here's Christmas Day. Here's Christmas night. So tomorrow, Thursday evening, the system develops right around that 10 p.m. to about midnight time frame. By about 1 o'clock in the morning, it is getting underway up in northern lower Michigan. At 4 a.m., it continues to fill in. Snow up further north in the UP. You've got some sleet there, denoted in the orange color, and also that pink color, freezing rain there to keep a close eye on, and green is obviously rain further south. By sunrise Friday, the system has reached us in the lower peninsula, continues up in the upper peninsula as well, and by the late morning time frame, that has shifted a little bit further south versus yesterday, but the heavier precipitation ramps up there mid to late morning still on Friday into the early to mid-afternoon hours here on Friday. That is some pretty heavy freezing rain there that's falling. And do take note, areas further west and south are in rain here because temperatures are going to stay quite warm over on that western half of the state there. So you guys are looking out based on latest models here. But also take note, we have a corridor of sleet here in the orange that could be a little bit wider than shown. But if you're close to that cutoff line, if you live anywhere within a county or two radius where the blue changes to orange and pink, you guys are probably going to see a mix of all precip types, freezing rain, sleet, and snow. Now, moving us into the afternoon hours, by 4 into 7 p.m. Friday, the system begins to work its way out, and by the time we get to late Friday, that system has left us with temperatures hovering right around freezing. If you're in the UP, in the 20s there for Friday evening. So, time frame, first thing to note here, time frame for Friday's system. It starts right around 10 p.m. at the earliest, Thursday night, so tomorrow night, but likely starting a little bit later on, probably midnight to 1 a.m. up in the UP. It's going to take a bit for it to reach over here for a lot of us, like the Grand Rapids, Detroit areas, further south in the lower peninsula. Probably going to be towards sunrise on Friday for our first precipitation from the system. Heaviest arrives during the late morning, early afternoon hours on Friday. Now, let's talk a couple caveats here. The big question, how much ice, how much snow, how much rain, etc. What are the impacts? Well, I want to first start off by saying the European model, backing this up here, the European model does a good job with denoting no dry slots. It has pure snow. It's got a corridor here of freezing rain, sleet, and rain further south. There's really no dry pockets there showing up. We have one little one over here in the Lake Huron, Ontario area, but otherwise it's pretty solid precip shield. Now, moving over here to the HRRR, the short-term high-res guidance is coming in dry. So here's what the radar looks like according to the HRRR model Friday morning. As you can see, there is a large pocket of dry air that is sucking a lot of the moisture out of this. And it's almost on the extreme side of likely not going to happen. It's so dry. The biggest caveat we're trying to figure out, looking at data, looking at models with these winter systems, how much, if any, dry air is there going to be? If we have abundance of it, totals are going to be cut down. But if we don't have the dry air issues, we could be looking at a little bit more in the way of snow, freezing rain, and rain. So putting it all together here, the European model continues to go aggressive on the ice accumulation. This is basically what we call QPF, the total amount of precip that's going to fall as freezing rain. The model here says a tenth inch upwards of 4 to 5 tenths, but that's not all going to accumulate. We use something called FRAM to give us a better idea, a more realistic sense of what may happen. And even this is likely overdone here as well, but it gives us a better idea. So a tenth up by Traverse City, Mount Pleasant at 2/10 there. It has a bit heavier swath from about pretty much all of the thumb region down to the 94 corridor back toward Grand Rapids, likely overdone with those totals. But if there's going to be a heavier swath of accretion, it's going to be in that central, south central Michigan area from about Grand Rapids through Lansing, through Jackson, over to Sarnia, Detroit, Flint areas. Now, I have a handy tool pulled up here with the forecast officially from the Weather Service. So let's go ahead and zoom in here. This is your ice accretion forecast based out of the entire state, really. But if I hover over areas here, you're going to see a general trend here. Down in Adrian, about a tenth of an inch expected there. Ann Arbor, about 0.14, or between 1 and 2 tenths. Really, across the entire port of Lower Michigan, we're seeing anywhere from a tenth to 2 tenths of an inch of ice. That is your forecast. Okay? Up in the thumb region, there's some areas that do get close to 2 tenths, perhaps a quarter inch. Remember, ice storm criteria is a quarter inch of ice, so we're getting close to it in very localized areas. But for the large scale spectrum, between a tenth and 2 tenths is the expectation here for a wide area of Lower Michigan. Now, let's go ahead and talk about probabilities, because there are people in chat, in our comments, in our messages asking if it's going to be an ice storm. Let's talk probabilities. All right, this should answer your guys' questions. So here is a map showing probability of at least 1/100th of an inch of ice. As you can see, these probabilities are upwards of 90% from Adrian up into Detroit, up through Flint area. Outside, we're about 80%. It's a very high probability of at very least a glaze of ice for a large chunk of Michigan, and that alone is going to cause travel issues throughout Friday. That is a big story, okay? Let's go up to a tenth of an inch. Now remember, a quarter inch, 0.25, is what we need for an ice storm criteria, or power outages, or impacts to trees and stuff like that. So a tenth is not enough to cause that, but still can be impactful, especially to travel. Here, probabilities are more like 40 to 60% or so for this area. I'm waiting for this to load in here. I should have probabilities on the screen. But a wide area between 40 and 60% from about the Big Rapids area down through Flint, down toward Adrian, Jackson areas where the probabilities are higher. There's our probability. So 60, upwards of 70% at least of a tenth of an inch of ice. Now, let's go to ice storm criteria. What is it going to take to get power outages, tree branch damage, stuff like that? So here's probabilities based on latest guidance here from NWS. Adrian area, 10%. Up in Detroit, we're at 25%. Ann Arbor, about 30% or so. The highest probability currently centered between Flint, over toward Port Huron, down to about Livonia area, where upwards of 35% probabilities of a quarter inch of ice. So the odds right now that we reach ice storm criteria are very localized, but also they are not very high. The chances that we don't meet criteria are much higher. So if you think about the opposite direction, there's a 65% chance we don't hit ice storm criteria in this area. So putting it all together, impacts to travel are likely. Very high impacts to travel are likely throughout the entire day on Friday. Impacts should primarily stick to travel, but localized areas, we're going to say from this dark pink corridor from Grand Rapids over to Port Huron down to 94 corridor, that general region may see a few areas try to push that quarter inch threshold that may lead to isolated power outages. It's not a high chance, but it is a chance. That is based off latest data. We still have about 24 to 36 hours left to go before the system is in full swing here. So there's still time for this to adjust up or adjust down. So stay tuned to tomorrow's forecast. But right now, confidence is that this will not be a major ice storm for us in the state of Michigan, but still will be impactful to travel, especially around the holiday, which is tomorrow. All right. And to clarify that, there are no travel issues for tomorrow, but if you're traveling back the day after on Friday, that is when you have concerns. All right. That is the forecast. Questions, comments, concerns, feel free to drop them in chat. I'll be on here for a few minutes here answering questions, but hopefully that really gave you guys a good spectrum of probabilities and possibilities. One thing I did not touch on, I'll touch on very quickly. I don't want to forget about the Upers up there. We do have snow accumulations, there we go, expected for the UP and northern lower as well. Through Friday evening, a general 1 to 5 inches of snow for a good chunk of the UP. Up by the Alpena area in northern lower, could see a few inches of snow up there as well. The further south you go to that cutoff line, the more sleet could mix in, so it may not stick as well further south there. But the further north you go, the higher chances for a few inches of accumulation are going to be. But overall, not a huge major system in terms of snow for the UP. I will say as well, the weekend system into next week does really ramp up our lake effect snow. Model through midweek next week, the UP gets hammered once again with lake effect snow. So we're going to be tracking multiple systems and rounds of that snow into next week and into January as well. So stay tuned for that if you're a Uper watching us, or northern lower Michigan, or perhaps western lower Michigan as well. Lake effect will make a return after the holidays and likely after the new year as well. All right, back to the chat here. Time frame for this system is going to be beginning up in the UP as early as Christmas night, about 10 p.m. or so. But for you guys who are watching, probably 90% of you guys watching in the lower peninsula, probably going to be closer to sunrise on Friday. So we're going to say rough time frames, 4 a.m. at the earliest to about 8 a.m. at the latest. That's when we start to see precip pick up there. It's heaviest late morning into the early afternoon hours. Nicole, power outages at this point would be isolated in nature, not widespread. If confidence were to increase that we exceed a quarter inch of ice over a wide area, at that point we talk about scattered widespread outages. Right now, not seeing that. I will say, give it another day, 24 hours. We'll do a briefing tomorrow night. Yes, on Christmas night, we'll do a briefing for latest information. So stay tuned if you want to tune in. Tomorrow at 7, feel free to tune back. We'll be live again, just like we are tonight. But right now, probabilities are not very high for a widespread power outage event. So let's talk temperatures throughout Friday night into Saturday as well, because we're going to accumulate ice very likely in some areas. But is it going to melt? That was a big question yesterday. So let's flip over to temperatures here. As you can see here, Friday afternoon, we are in a very tight corridor here of roughly 29 to about 33 degrees-ish, and that's what's going to cause the freezing rain to accumulate and accrete, as the official term is. But as we push this into Friday night, colder air works in. So that ice is going to stick around. What's on the trees and the roadways, if it's not treated, obviously, because salt will work during this time frame, it will be slick. Saturday, though, we do see a resurgence of that warmer air that will melt the ice on Saturday. So it'll stick around throughout the day, throughout the night on Friday. But the good news is the latest models here are warming us back up into Saturday. Good news. Snow total for Wolverine, you're looking probably between about 1 inch to 2 inches. Most of your accumulation will be mixed between sleet, snow, and freezing rain. So it'll probably switch back and forth multiple times throughout the day on Friday. Cyndaquil asks, what is the sleet accumulation map? And I always have a hard time finding that. Give me 1 second here to see if I can't pull that up. There it is. Easy enough. So there's your sleet totals here. About 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch In most places, up in the thumb, half-inch of sleet being shown there. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not, but it's going to be messy out there for that thin corridor between that snow and freezing rain line. There's going to be a really tight corridor there that's going to get a lot of precip. SSG prods, that is a good way to put it. Yes, the impacts to travel are the highest with this system. A very simple glaze of ice can cause impacts on the roadways, and we're going to be seeing very high probabilities across a wide area of Michigan here of at least a glaze of ice. So it doesn't matter if you're in Gaylord, doesn't matter if you're down here in Kalamazoo. Almost the entirety of lower Michigan and the western part of the UP is about to get a glaze of ice. That alone is going to be impactful to travel on untreated surfaces and roadways, sidewalks even, your decks. Be very careful Friday if you're going out. Your stairs, your steps, your patios, your decks, they're going to be slippery. Now, in terms of ice storm criteria, power outages, the chances for that are much, much lower. We're seeing 70 to 90% chance glaze of ice for the entire state. And now we're seeing 20 to 30% in a very localized area here for ice storm criteria. And that's when we start getting concerned for power outages and tree damage and stuff like that, which is a quarter inch of ice. So we're seeing the highest right around Waterford area here, where it's about 34, 35% probability of exceeding or meeting a quarter inch of ice. So it's a much, much lower chance right now that we get ice storm criteria with power outages and stuff like that. Not to say it's impossible, because there could be localized areas that could bring down some branches and power lines with, say, 0.2 of an inch of ice. It's not out of the question, but those impacts are much more small and localized, and it won't be a widespread event in nature. If confidence increases, we'll have another briefing tomorrow night. More updates coming your way tomorrow as well. If you're a Patreon subscriber, you're going to be getting a late night update tonight. I know Joel and Alex are working on the forecast later on this evening after new data comes in. So we'll have our forecast graphics out on Patreon probably by midnight, I have to imagine. But you'll have those first, and they'll be on the page tomorrow morning for you guys who are not on Patreon. Tangi says, rather have snow than ice. It is disruptive. I agree. Snow, unpopular hot take, I guess, but snow is easier to get traction on than ice is. I'll take snow any day over ice. Off topic, but have you noticed the higher chance of seeing northern lights soon? Not really. We have way too many clouds out there to be talking about northern lights, but overall chances have been a little subdued lately. We did have a couple coronal holes that sent high-speed streams our way, enhanced solar winds in simple terms, but we didn't really see much of any impact here in Michigan because of clouds. So, and with these systems coming up, much of the same as expected. A lot of cloud cover. Melissa, this system, we'll go over timing one more time for you guys who are just tuning in here for timing. Let's go ahead and back this up here to, there we go. So this is backing this up. All right, there we go. Thursday, Christmas night, tomorrow night, 10 p.m. We could see some snowflakes up in the UP as early as about 8 to 10 p.m., but the real heavy and concerning precip holds off until after midnight. Here's 4 a.m. The UP begins to ramp up there with snow, ice, sleet. Also take note, the western part of lower Michigan begins to see its first precip. That may be delayed a little bit just because it takes a bit of time for dry air to saturate. So just because it's shown on radar, it may not be hitting the ground fully. It may or may not, we'll see. But 4 a.m. is the earliest start point for western Michigan. And by the time we reach the 7 a.m. time frame, the entirety of the UP is in precip. Central Michigan also starting to precip as well. And by the time we get to 10 a.m., that entire system is overtaking the state, and that'll continue for a few hours before exiting right around Friday evening, dinner time, 6, 7 o'clock or so. Can we get thunder with freezing rain? Cyndaquil, excellent question there. There is a lot, not a lot. There is instability in the elevated layers of the atmosphere with this system. It would not shock me that we see a couple lightning strikes with the system. But in terms of thunder snow, unlikely. Thunder rain, freezing rain, it is a possibility. Not a high possibility, but it is a possibility. My dad's in chat here, and what he says is true. An ice storm, by definition, is a quarter inch, or in numbers, it's 0.25 or greater inches of accretion of ice. So to get ice storm warnings, you have to have high confidence it's going to be exceeded. And right now, there's no high confidence. We will likely get a lot of winter weather advisories issued over the next 24 hours. So don't be surprised you wake up tomorrow morning and almost the entire state is in purple, because that's the color of winter weather advisories. It would not shock me at all. But winter storm warnings and ice storm warnings, I would say at this time is unlikely. We'll see. Flights leave Metro at 7 a.m. should be okay. In Detroit on Friday morning, 7 a.m. is probably okay. Any later than that, I start to worry, as that precip will move in pretty quick. I do see some members gifted and also some super chats in here. Let me go ahead and go back and get those here. My channel only goes back for about 20 chats or so. So let me hop on my phone here and get this sorted out real quick. If you guys have questions, though, feel free to drop them in chat. We got Pam and Dennis back for month 17. How is DeWitt looking for the weekend? DeWitt looking like it may be in the highest ice probability corridor. Impacts to travel is your main concern. I would not be worried about an ice storm at this point, but if that changes, I'll let you guys know. Impacts to travel are much, much higher. Jacob gifting 5 memberships. Thank you, Jacob, for that. Appreciate your support. You got Kalamazoo Candy with a $10 super chat. Says Merry Christmas all at MSC. Thank you, Candy, for that. N8IWS. Merry Christmas, everyone. Becoming a member for 13 months. Thank you to N8IWS. And Evan, back for month number 18 here at MSC. Evan's one of our chasers as well. Good to see you in chat here tonight, Evan. Do you think the ice threat is increasing? Here in chat, good question. So confidence with the system. The models have always shown a large amount of ice, but it's always important to interpret the very small details with these systems. Just because you see a model that says, hey, here's a ½ inch to here's 3/4 inches of ice. Sure, that may all fall, but how much of that actually sticks on surfaces or accretes? Not the full amount. So what actually accretes is going to depend on surface temperatures, also temperatures that are 5,000 feet, 10,000 feet above your heads. It's going to all come down to the nitty-gritty details that are best defined in the last 12 hours leading up to the event. So the very, very fine details are yet to come. So if we get to tomorrow and we have a sudden shift in colder temperatures at the surface, we may see a little bit of an uptick in ice accretion, for example. But we're not going to know that for sure until tomorrow. Confidence with ice storms and with ice events like this build the greatest in the last 12 hours leading up to the event. Anything besides that, model's been consistent with the system. So confidence increasing, sure. But confidence in higher amounts, not right now. It's a little confusing. I mean, winter weather in general is a lot more confusing to forecast and communicate than severe weather is. It's very, very detailed oriented, like 1 degree anywhere in the atmosphere can throw an entire forecast off with winter. In the summertime, 77 or 78 degrees, not much difference. But in winter, 31 versus 32 makes all the difference. It's often why winter weather is also a little bit more sporadic in forecasting. So keep that in mind too if you're always wondering, why is the forecast wrong so often in the wintertime? There's a lot of detail that goes into it and a lot of fine tuning that happens very quickly. In Mason, plans to go to my son's in DeWitt by 11:30 Friday morning. Think I should cancel. Sue, I would definitely plan on slick travel on your way back for sure. 11:30 might be a little bit early for things to get slick out there. I could be wrong, but I would definitely be planning on slick travel if you're going to go out on your way back from that visit. I will say the tomorrow night's runs of the models, they happen roughly between 8 and 10 p.m. So about 24 hours from now. That's really going to be the last like set of data we go off of with this system. So anything that's going to happen with, like, for example, if we do get an increase of ice, it's probably not going to be forecasted or highlighted by anybody until that last model run, just because there's a lot that goes into this. A lot can change. We're not going to advertise something that's we're not confident in. Simple as that. And right now, going back to the probabilities here, there's just not a very high confidence we're going to exceed ice storm criteria. But I want to revert back to what I said at the start of this. Doesn't matter if it's a quarter inch or a glaze of ice, travel is going to be slick throughout Friday. No matter if we get power outages, no matter if we get tree damage, travel is going to be impacted. And that's the big story no matter what happens. Would starting our travel north when it starts be better than waiting until after 12? The earlier you go, Hannah, I'm not sure where you're going from, where you're going to, but the earlier you get out there and get to your destinations on Friday, the better off you're going to be. We're going to say after 10 a.m., things will likely begin to deteriorate quickly from the west side of the state to the east side. The east side has a bit more time, so over in Detroit, up through Port Huron, up in the Thumb, you have a few more hours to get to your destinations, but on the west side of the state, from Grand Rapids up to Big Rapids area, you guys have a little bit more caution a little bit earlier on the day on Friday. And definitely allow yourself extra time to get your destinations no matter where you're headed. If you're leaving somewhere, make sure you plan on delays because it's going to be slick out there. Hopefully the plows can get out there and treat a lot of these roadways. That's the hope, at least. Being it's a holiday, we could have limited staff. I don't know their plans. I don't have sources or connections there. I couldn't tell you what MDOT's plans are or local counties. I don't know. But my hope is that they're out there treating and getting things ready. Hannah, the earlier you go on Friday, the better off you're going to be, for sure. I'd be leaving extra early on Friday to get up there. Yeah, winds are not a huge issue with this system. Winds do pick up for the weekend system, though. We do have gusts being shown, or what were shown, I know this morning. Go find this real quick here. We'll go ahead and run through this. Let's go right here. Let's go to gusts. So winds throughout that weekend system really start to ramp up for the Sunday time frame. There we go. By late Sunday into Monday, lake effect snow will be ongoing here for the UP, western and northern lower. Gusts between 30 to 40, perhaps a bit higher in spots, likely throughout Sunday night into Monday. So Monday's the next big day for wind. With this event for Friday, winds are pretty calm overall. We're looking at less than 20-25 mile an hour gusts at most, which is not a big deal. Localized areas up in the northern part of lower Michigan, up by like Mackinac, Chippewa areas, those may be a little bit higher with gusts Friday morning, but that's, again, not a huge concern. Good evening, Sun Goddess. Good to see you in chat here. Becca, whenever somebody becomes a member, renews their membership, on my screen, it says their username and it says member for X amount of months. So that's how we know on our end how long they've been a member here. I don't know if it tells you guys as well on your side of things. I don't know that. But on my side, I can see how many months they've been a member. One more. Any mods on Facebook by chance? One more time here, I'll go over the timing details just a second. I got to get rid of a troll here real quick on Facebook. Give me 1 second, guys. There we go. One more time for the timing of this event. Off the European model here, we're going to start Christmas off dry. And by the time we get into Thursday night, we do have precip starting up in the UP. Could start snowflakes up there by about 10 p.m. or so. But for those of us, I'm going to say probably 90% of you guys are watching from the Lower Peninsula area. You guys are going to have to wait until about 4 a.m. or so for precip to begin around that time frame here for the western part of the state. And then by the time we get to sunrise, that's when stuff really starts to pick up there. Impacts will deteriorate from then onward. By 10 a.m., east side of the state also on deck with this as well. And by the time we get to 1 p.m., the entire state is really engulfed in the system, whether it's rain, whether it's freezing rain, sleet, or snow. That's when the entire state here, late morning, Friday, into early afternoon, is being impacted by this event. Things should wrap up here from west to east slowly, clearing the UP by 4 p.m. on Friday. Western lower between 4 and 7 p.m. and eastern by about 7 and onward. We'll be live here again, 7 p.m. tomorrow. I'll take a couple final questions here and we'll wrap things up. One more time for expected ice accretion. Based on latest data, there's a wide area in central and southern lower Michigan between 1 and 2/10 of an inch of ice. And again, for reference, for an ice storm criteria, for like power outages, for tree damage, for major impacts to infrastructure, stuff like that, we need a 1/4 inch of ice or greater. For major impacts, about a 1/2 inch of ice. We're not going to be near that with this system based on guidance, but a lot of us will see at least a glaze, if not a couple tenths of an inch of ice. And then the chances for ice storm criteria, highest around the Flint to about the Lake St. Clair area, but the highest probability we're seeing is of roughly 35% of meeting or exceeding ice storm criteria. So it's a greater chance we don't get ice storm criteria right now than it is a chance we will. So overall, 1/10 to 2/10 is likely for a large area of Michigan. Travel impacts are highest concern with the system. Would not rule out a few isolated outages, power outages here and there, but right now, nothing widespread, nothing like we had back last year in March across northern lower, nothing like we had a couple years ago in southern lower, nothing like that right now expected. If that changes, we'll let you guys know. But right now, not seeing that. I'll say it one more time here. The latest data will continue to shift back and forth a little bit. We're going to fine tune things next 24 hours. Tomorrow night's runs of the models are going to really cement the entire forecast. So I'd highly recommend staying tuned in. I know it's Christmas tomorrow, but 7 p.m. live tomorrow for updates. And then after that live stream, data starts to roll in. Updates will be on the page ASAP then as well. But right now, confidence, travel impacts are highest. Ice storm criteria, pretty low at this time. It is getting warm in my room here, so I'm going to take my flannel off. I'm going to look for another question here. We're going to wrap things up. Yeah, if you're seeing accounts that are pushing major ice impacts and stuff like that, I know there's a few of them out there. It's really based off QPF data, which in short, if I go back here and show you guys a model here, for a brief explanation, the model may show a few areas here between a 1/2 inch and 3/4 inches of ice, but what a meteorologist does is they break it down. What are temperatures looking like? We may get a 1/2 inch of ice that falls as freezing rain, but how much of that 1/2 inch is actually going to stick on surfaces or accrete? Not all of it. There's going to be some runoff there. There's going to be a lot of caveats, including temperatures at the surface, 1,000 feet, 2,000, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 feet off the ground. All of those details matter. So while models are showing a 1/2 inch of ice, not all of that's going to stick because of various factors. And that's why it takes a human, not a AI, not a computer, but a human to look at the data, look at the profile, and really start to analyze and break that down and get a better idea of what may happen and what will likely happen. So I would encourage everybody to stay tuned tomorrow. I would say if you see pages pushing major ice storm, unfollow. I mean, I can't tell you what to do with your life, but it's just nonsensical right now based on what we're seeing here at MSC. It's not going to be a major ice storm. Now, granted, impacts are still likely with travel being the highest. And again, power outage is possible in localized areas. This is not going to be a major widespread event at current thinking. With that being said, we're going to wrap things up here. Appreciate you guys tuning in, watching. Be back here 7 p.m. tomorrow, last live stream. And we may, tonight, after we're done here, we may roll a Santa tracking live stream with NORAD, their website. And we'll also be posting updates to the page for those kiddos out there who want to know Santa's location. We'll have updates on the page starting when the stream is over. So stay tuned for that if you are interested. All right. And with all that being said, we're going to wrap things up. We have sponsors here at MSC that help keep operations rolling. We're going to start off with StormGuard Roofing and Construction out of the Detroit metro area. Katz Roofing and Siding out of Potterville, Michigan. Mike Hayes, Roofing and Siding out of the Thumb region. McKay Tree Specialists out of Southeast Michigan. Our spotlight sponsor of the day, Kuiper Tree Care in West Michigan. 616-828-8225. On Top Roofing out of Livingston County. Top Gun Roofing out of West Michigan. A-Class Construction Restoration, Mason County. Rainbow Restoration, Kent County surrounding areas. Guardian Technologies, Skycam sponsor, as well as audio video security out of the Burton area. Rapid Radios for LTE Communications, our communication sponsor here at MSC. American Arbor, tree sponsor out of Southwest Michigan. Clear Plow for a unique way to clear your snow off of your patios, driveways, sidewalks without breaking your back. Apex Restoration out of Grand Blanc. And lastly, the Ronald McDonald House of Detroit. Feel free to donate to their cause by calling the number on your screen or visiting their website, rmhc.org. With that being said, we are going to wrap things up here, guys. Appreciate you tuning in. One last look at chat here. I'm going to say, stay tuned to the page for updates. Probably not a lot coming your way tonight besides Santa updates, but tomorrow morning, and especially tomorrow evening, we're going to be locked in. Even though it's Christmas, we're going to be locked in here. Paying attention, make sure you guys are up to date with the latest information. One last thing. Shout out to all the mods in chat, as well as the staff here at MSC, our chasers as well. It's the holiday season. We're in full swing. So appreciate you guys helping out, whether it's the moderators here in chat, chasers going out to chase, get content, or the staff here from our production, Matt, Joel, forecasting, myself, everybody behind the scenes. Thank you. For myself personally, to you guys. Team effort, even it's the holidays, we're here for the state of Michigan. Awesome job, everyone. With that said, we're going to wrap things up. You guys enjoy the next 24 hours. I'll catch you guys another 24 hours here on this page for a live update. Stay tuned. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. We'll see you guys tomorrow.